Hello everyone, welcome back to another Stitches and Scribbles tutorial. I'm going to start off by apologizing if you can hear my air conditioning in the background. It is currently 95 degrees where I live, so that will not be turning off during the video. We're going to leave it on so that I don't sweat all over my yarn, because that would be gross. Today's going to be a pretty easy tutorial. I'm not really going to show the stitch pattern. This is more about how to put pieces together in order to create a sweater with no shaping, all rectangles. You can use any stitch pattern, any yarn. This is just meant to be a very flexible tutorial. But I'll start off with the materials I used. So this is the Mega Ball yarn from Hobbii. It's 100% acrylic and it is a 3 weight. Now if you've seen my really pretty old video at this point with a haul from Hobbii yarn, I did get 2 of these. I thought I would need both to create the sweater that I made for this video. I ended up using just one and a little bit of the second one, which is why I still have most of this one here. So this can be used for a shawl or something else. I typically wear a size large to extra large, so if you're smaller than me, you may be able to make a pattern like this using just one. You can also substitute with any yarn of your choice, any stitch pattern of your choice, any hook size, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. I also used a 6mm hook for my particular pattern. Let's start looking at the pieces. So the way this sweater is constructed is by making 5 rectangles. 3 of these rectangles are one size and 2 are the other size. So let's start with our bigger rectangles first. So you're gonna need 3 rectangles where you where you chain the width of your shoulders. So for me, with the stitch I was using, the yarn size and the hook size, I chained 55 stitches to be a little bit past the width of my shoulders because I like things to fit kind of oversized. Then you can pick any stitch pattern you want. I'll hold mine up close. I did a pattern of 2 double crochet in the same stitch and then skip one. I'm actually holding it upside down. It's like that. So 2 double crochet in the same stitch and skip one and keep going. I did an odd number of stitches because with this pattern you want to end with a single double crochet in the last stitch. This is one of the stitch patterns I use to make things look a little bit fancier because it's not just a basic stitch, but it's also a really easy, really drapey stitch. And for this style of sweater, a drapey stitch is important. So you need 3 rectangles this size. The way you're going to construct your sweater, so I'm going to pull out my other 2. And show you kind of how the shaping is going to work. Okay. So when we sew these together at the seam that would go from your neck to your shoulders, you're going to sew about 1/3 of the way in and then leave the rest of the piece hanging. So this is going to give that really drapey, oversized cardigan look in the front. So I'm going to go ahead and pop in some stitch markers and use a measuring tape so that I know how far to go. I'm going to start in the corner, so making sure to get those corner stitches from both. And that looks like the corner. And I'm going to measure across first. So since mine is 18 inches across, I'm going to divide that into thirds, which means I want 6 inches in from that corner to be sewn. So I'm going to pop my next stitch marker 6 inches from the corner. And then do the same thing on the other side. You don't have to use stitch markers for this if you would rather just go ahead and start sewing, but I like it because it kind of keeps everything straight while I'm working. I'll measure that 6 inches again. Okay, so now you've got it sectioned off. I'm going to cut You can use your method of choice to sew up this cardigan. I'm actually going to do a slip stitch seam, so instead of just using a yarn needle and sewing, I'm going to crochet the pieces together. Since this fabric is so drapey and oversized, I want to make sure that my seams are really structured, so I'm going to choose that method for sewing up. So the way that you do that, I'm going to stick in right where I put my stitch marker, start with a slip knot, pull that slip knot through. It's a little hard because there's quite a few layers. And then chain one. And you're going to do that in each pair of stitches. So you line them up, pull through once, and pull through the other one, all the way across. And this creates a seam that is fairly hard to see on the finished product, especially if you do turn it inside out at the end. So you're going to go ahead and do that in both of your sewing sections and tie it off. Alright, once you have those two pieces seamed up at the top, we're actually going to put all of these aside and pull out our sleeve pieces. So for your sleeves, you want to create two identical rectangles, and you're going to chain a length that fits around your upper arm. So in my case, I did 31 chain stitches in that yarn size and hook size that I used, and I then made my two pieces the length that I wanted my sleeves to be, which was pretty close to my wrist. Once you try on the sweater, because sometimes sleeves fit differently once it's on, you can always add a cuff by crocheting around the end or knitting around the end if you're doing this with a knit stitch. But it's easier to start with one that's too short than one that's too long, because you can't really rip those stitches out once it's all sewn up. So I would recommend going a little bit shorter than what you think you need, and you can always work it up from there. For our two sleeve pieces, we're going to fold them in half the long way and seam up along this edge to make a tube. So I'm going to use that same seaming method that I did before, which was slip stitch, crochet all the way down, and you're going to do that to both of your sleeve pieces. So just to show you again, I'm going to start in that corner stitch on both edges, pull my loop through, and then start those slip stitches going all the way down. You're going to do that to both of your sleeves. Alright, once you have gotten both sleeves sewn up into tubes, it's time to attach them to your sweater. So I have the back of my sweater facing up, not that it matters, it can be the front or the back, and I have my sleeve that I'm going to connect right here. So I'm going to use stitch markers again just to make it a little bit easier for myself. So I'm going to find that top seam on the main part of the sweater and loop it to the sleeve, making sure that the seam of the sleeve is facing down. I'm going to stick another one into the sleeve and then into both layers of the sweater. You're going to do the same thing on both sides and just sew it front and back on the sleeve, and then you're going to sew down the sides of the rest of the cardigan to finish it off. Alright, I wanted to give you a final view of the sweater. I obviously have to weave in ends, but it is all put together. So you can see that the front is very long and drapey, and when it's on it kind of hangs down. This also would be super cute belted. You could add ties, you could add fringe or a trim to the end, you could add cuffs to the sleeves. It's really customizable, but just kind of shows that all you really need to make a cardigan is knowing how to make a rectangle. So I hope that you found this helpful, and I hope that it inspires you to try maybe some new stitch patterns, some new yarns, and some new techniques. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!